welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something profoundly quiet. But man, is it powerful. I want you to picture a crowded room for a second. Maybe it's a classroom or a busy boardroom, maybe a loud dinner party. Who is the smartest person in that space? Now, our gut instinct, it usually tells us to look for the person commanding the room, right? The one talking the loudest, dominating every conversation. But the reality is usually much darker and much quieter. Because often the smartest person in the room, they're just sitting in the back, observing, listening, thinking. Society kind of misunderstands this silence. We tend to label it as weakness or fear or just being socially awkward. But when we actually look deeper, we find that silence is rarely an absence of thought. Honestly, more often than not, it's just intelligence protecting itself.
You see, there's this really harsh reality that highly intelligent people learn very, very early on in life. The world doesn't reward truth as much as it rewards comfort. I really want you to take a second and let that sink in. When you're the smartest student in the room, you figure out pretty quickly that, well, people don't actually want to be corrected. They don't want their worldview completely shattered by complex facts. They just want their existing beliefs validated. They want comfort. And once you deeply understand that, you kind of just stop wasting your words. You stop offering truth to a room that is literally only hungry for an echo.
To put this into perspective, I want to introduce you to a story from our source material about a boy named Arav. Now, Arav was brilliant. He always knew the answers before anyone else, his teachers completely admired him, and the other students relied on him. But over time, Arav just began speaking less and less. Imagine sitting in a room where everyone is getting super emotional, arguing about a problem that you've already logically solved hours ago. You're just sitting there, seeing the hidden intentions, the social masks people wear, the obvious contradictions. It forces a really difficult choice. Would you keep arguing? Or would you just stay silent? Arav realized that ordinary conversations are absolutely exhausting when people aren't actually looking for solutions. So most smart people, just like Arav, eventually choose silence. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they know deep down that speaking up is going to change absolutely nothing.
So this actually brings us to a core divide in how we process the world around us. On one side, we have what you could call shallow minds. They thrive on that loud ego. They're always seeking really simple answers. They want simple enemies to point their fingers at, and they project this incredibly loud, unshakable certainty. But then, contrast that with the intelligent mind. An intelligent mind literally sees complexity everywhere. It questions itself constantly. It replays conversations, analyzes consequences, and basically views the whole world in shades of gray. And because intelligent minds see all this complexity, and because that same complexity makes the rest of the world incredibly uncomfortable, the intelligent mind retreats. It steps back into calculated silence. It's really just a quiet calculation, a way to navigate a loud, totally ego-driven world. You know, there's that famous saying, right? Empty vessels make the loudest sound. Well, it turns out true intelligence actually creates a profound sense of humility. It's like the more you learn about the universe, the more you realize just how incredibly little you actually know. And that realization, it totally softens the ego. Intelligent people understand that most arguments aren't really a search for truth at all. They're just primitive little competitions for dominance. People don't want understanding, they just want victory. And winning a dominance-based argument almost always costs you way more than simply losing it and walking away. So what actually happens to the quiet observer? Well, this is where we enter the shadows of the intelligent mind. Psychologists actually have a chilling term for this. They call it cognitive isolation. See, the more deeply you think, the harder it becomes to find people who truly understand you. And we're not talking about physical loneliness here. You could literally be surrounded by 100 people in a packed room. This is mental loneliness. It's that terrifying, really chilling realization that your mind is operating in an entirely different dimension than everyone else around you. It's a heavy, heavy burden. The burden of profound thinking, mixed with the total inability to find true understanding in the middle of all that noise. When faced with that kind of isolation, smart people adapt. They start to calculate the real, actual cost of winning arguments. I mean, think about it. To win a loud, completely meaningless debate, what happens? You lose your inner peace, you waste your precious time, your energy, you totally drain your emotional reserves. And for what? You often end up breaking relationships over the most trivial matters. Because life teaches them this painful math over and over, intelligent people become highly selective. They become detached. They choose silence, but not out of fear. They use it as a protective armor, a way to shield their soul from just unnecessary drama.
Let's bring this back to Arav for a minute.
When a teacher finally sat him down and asked why he had become so quiet lately, he just smiled slightly and dropped this heavy realization. He said, "Because people don't listen to understand, they listen to reply." Now, the classroom actually laughed at him when he said that, but Arav wasn't joking, not at all. As the years passed, his circle of friends shrank. Society looked at his silent restraint and fundamentally misunderstood the whole thing. They called him cold, they said he was detached, arrogant even. But he wasn't arrogant. He was just deeply, profoundly tired.
The thing is, though, this silent restraint, it can actually build into a really dangerous psychological trap. It's essentially a descent into emotional isolation. It happens in stages. First, you struggle to connect. Then, you struggle to express vulnerability. And finally, you face the ultimate struggle, the struggle to trust. When you observe human behavior that deeply, when you start seeing the masks and the manipulation literally everywhere, you eventually just stop opening up completely. The intelligent mind becomes incredibly crowded with thoughts and feelings, but the mouth, it remains entirely shut. They feel too much, but they show too little. I want you to just imagine Arav for a moment. He's sitting entirely alone on a dark rooftop, looking down at the glowing lights of a massive, noisy city. Down there, millions of people are speaking constantly, posting constantly, arguing endlessly. And up on the roof, there's just silence. He is so exhausted by the shallowness of human interaction, he's just tired of explaining thoughts that nobody wanted to hear in the first place. He is simply sitting there, watching a world that is totally addicted to noise. Which brings us to a deeply uncomfortable question, doesn't it? Why are most people so terrified of silence? It's because true silence forces you to meet yourself. Think about it. Without the noise, without the constant scrolling on your phone, without the arguing, you are left totally alone with your own mind. And for a lot of people, that is a meeting they spend their entire lives desperately running from. So we end up completely divided between two worlds. On one side, you've got the noise, the constant posting, the endless arguing, that desperate running from oneself. On the other side, you have the refuge. And it's fascinating because psychological studies actually suggest our brains consume less energy during quiet observation than they do during active arguing. So for the intelligent person, silence becomes their sanctuary. It's where they think, where they create, where they heal, and where they observe. Smart people become very, very familiar with silence. But, as this explainer notes, there is a distinct danger here. Sometimes they become just a little too familiar with it. But right here is where we uncover a critical turning point. True wisdom is actually not permanent silence. If you just hide your intelligence forever in the shadows, well, you help nobody. You literally become completely invisible. Yes, silence can heal, and sure, silence can protect you. But permanent silence? That's a prison of your own making. True wisdom actually requires recognizing that while silence is a powerful tool, it's not the ultimate destination. So, the absolutely crucial point here is finding that balance. The ultimate challenge of the intelligent mind basically becomes a matter of timing. It's knowing when to quietly observe versus knowing exactly when to express yourself. Because, let's be real, some truths desperately deserve to be spoken. Some people in your life deserve your raw honesty, and some moments in history demand your absolute courage. The art of calculated silence isn't about muting yourself permanently. Not at all. It's about knowing exactly when to hold your tongue and exactly when your voice matters enough to entirely change the temperature of a room.
And that brings us to this incredibly profound philosophical truth. Words are expensive. In the end, smart people stay silent because they understand the true currency of language in a way that most people just don't. Every single sentence you speak carries energy, it carries emotion, it carries inescapable consequences. Intelligent minds spend their words very, very carefully. And it's not because they're weak, it's not because they're afraid, it's because they possess a deep, deep respect for the true, destructive, and creative power of speech. As we bring this explainer to a close, let's circle back and look at the dynamics of power in that room we pictured at the very beginning. You know, the loudest person in the room often controls attention, but we have to realize that is a super superficial kind of control. It's fleeting. It relies entirely on volume, on ego, and the immediate, desperate grasping of eyeballs. It's basically just a loud flashing light that eventually is gonna burn out.
But the silent person, sometimes they control understanding. Think about it. While the loud person is busy fighting for attention, the silent observer has already mapped the entire room. They know the motives, they see the fears, they know the hidden truths.
They literally hold the understanding of the entire situation right in the palm of their hand. And when you really think about it, isn't that invisible power far more dangerous? I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.